Hello, and welcome to episode 85 of Nintendo Therapy, a show about the latest Nintendo news and rumors, as well as a celebration of all things Nintendo. My name is Kevin, and joining me this week in Dolphin Park to talk about the boat from Brothership, the boat from Wind Waker, and the jet ski from Wave Race is Harrison.
Yes, we are heading back to the sea, as I
Very
keep
nautical
saying
week.
over.
So yeah, lot of stuff to talk about this week. What do you want to talk about first in the notes here?
Right. Yes. Let's skip over any small talk. Let's talk about Zelda because
Yeah,
by the
that
time
dropped like right after we finished recording last week, unfortunately.
which always happens. That always seems to happen. Like right before we record, right after we record, something always seems to happen. So it's been about a week, I think. Been 6 days since the recording of this that the new Zelda trailer came out, and this is the last big trailer that we'll get before the September release. On top of that, a number of independent and a number of not independent publishers got a hands-on preview of the Zelda game. We can talk about that a little bit at the end. That's a little bit spoilery, but we can talk about that at the end. What did you think about the new Zelda trailer?
I mean, it's tough to give an opinion on something I was already hyped for. You know what I mean? But it did not lessen my hype at all. And if anything, I'm a little more excited now. I love this art style, so that didn't change. And I love Link's Awakening. I'm hoping to squeeze in a Link's Awakening playthrough in the next week or two because it's kind of a short game. I think I can get that in there. But I loved a lot of the stuff from the trailer. I think it's really interesting that Link as a character is a fighter with a magic meter, and now we have Zelda as a mage with a sword meter, which it's a neat reversal. It's like they put a lot of thought into that for sure. And I like the idea of collecting all the little things to charge it up in their version of the Dark World. I forget what it's called. Every Zelda game, I just call it the Dark World. Whatever their alternate universe is, like in Twilight Princess, you've got the world of Twilight. It's the Dark World. You've got that realm in Skyward Sword. It's the Dark World. It's just always the Dark World. But other than that, I don't know. How much more excited I could be. Just release it already. And I think I'm also still kind of in a little bit of disbelief that we're getting a new, like, I don't think it's hit me yet that a new Zelda game is going to be out soon, that it doesn't feel real that there's going to be another game in the list of mainline Zelda games this month. It's expanding already. I think in my mind, when Tears of the Kingdom came out, I set up a barrier that, okay, next Zelda game is on the Switch too. And it like still hasn't clicked, you know?
I would have assumed that we weren't going back to a top-down Zelda anytime soon. And I know this is not a traditional top-down Zelda game, but it is what it is. Like,
I like that you call it top down. I hate when people call it 2D Zelda because it's like it's not though. Like it's not. We're beyond 2D at this point. That's for side scrolling games, and even then, not so much.
The Sword Fighter form has confirmed that it's going to play more like a traditional top down Zelda game, but something I will include from the preview is the game will start off when you don't have sword fighter form.
Well, I think that form's also going to be something you need to conserve as a resource a lot, because keep in mind, at least according to what we know right now, The only way to recharge that meter is in the alternate universe. They didn't mention enemy drops being a way to recharge it. So I think that's going to be something that you're going to have to use sparingly.
Right. So in the still world, enemies you see enemies drop energies, but in the overworld, there's no evidence. It might be different though. There's no evidence of that changing besides maybe I'm assuming getting a higher level, which means um, a longer duration that you can use it. But something I saw in the previews is that in the beginning, when you don't have it, you have to be pretty tactical with how to use echoes in combat because you're extremely limited.
Yeah,
But
and
you
I
get
think they're going
sword
to try to
fighter.
force you to do that as much as possible. I think even once you get it, it's going to be a something where you can use it to kill like two enemies or something, like you said, until it levels up. But like at first, I think it's going to be something that's not the main way you're going to do combat. It's going to be something for like, oh, I don't feel like dealing with this guy. I'll just use it, you know.
It's going, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of pacing this game uses. I've talked a lot on here about how I think a lot of Nintendo games have an issue with the pacing of their games, including Zelda. Definitely including Zelda. I mean, uh, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, the beginning is so long that I think there should be changes of that. I think it's going to
Twilight
be funny
Twilight
though.
Princess and Wind Waker, yeah, all the Zelda games like I've always said that Twilight Princess and Wind Waker have opposite pacing issues where like Twilight Princess takes forever to get started and then Wind Waker has that, I mean they fixed it in the HD version, but it had that super long fetch quest at the end that really stretched things out. So it's like almost like they were opposite ends of things.
Yeah, but it'll be funny, I'm sure. Like, I bet people are going to pick up this game and then leave like bad reviews online saying, "Oh, there, there's no combat in this game," because they only played like 30 minutes, or something. Like,
Yeah.
like there's going to be people that are going to just probably, I think, just jump ahead and think, "Oh, like this is not. There's no combat. This is not a traditional Zelda game. It's just doing stupid, putting beds on things."
I could also see
Um,
though, I feel like this is a trajectory with some Zelda games where, especially the top-down Zeldas, where if it's not like a big budget 3D Zelda game, what you're gonna see is five, maybe less than 5 years from now, people are going to start saying that it's the most underrated game in the series and that it's, by far the best one. And, if that's your opinion, that's okay. It's just an observation that like that's definitely coming. Even though nobody's played this game yet, we can already say for sure some people out there in the future are going to be saying it's the best in the series and it's so underrated. And why don't people talk about it more? And it's just like because there's so many Zelda games at this point, people they pretty much all get talked about. So it just depends on what you're focused on and what you consume for media.
there's also going to be people who don't play this game at all, and day one are going to be like, "Oh, this is just 2D Tears of the Kingdom," and um, there have been even even more in this news trailer. There have been even more Tears of the Kingdom comparisons, I would say. The dungeons and the music used in the still world definitely remind me of Tears of the Kingdom. The first big boss that you fight, besides fighting Shadow Link, but the first big boss you fight is a seismic talus, which looks very similar to a stone talus, but the hitbox is like on its bottom. And oh, how do you say his name? Dompe? Dampe
That's what I
returns.
never knew. I said Dampy until they
Dampy?
released this new trailer, and now apparently it is Dampe. But I'd never heard it spoken before because they don't have voice acting in the Zelda games that he appears in, so nobody knew until now.
There's I don't look it up because there's like different accents depending on which language you're playing in. But yeah, it's Dampe, I guess. So he returns, and he's going to have automatons, which look like they're going to have different abilities than the actual echoes that you're given. And it looks really interesting. It looks like it's Tears of the Kingdom inspired again. But they're giving us like little like gadgets and gizmos to play with, and they have um they don't last. They have durability. They don't last forever. So it'll be interesting to see which abilities you are going to need to progress the game and how many options you're given to solve puzzles and to move ahead in the game, similar to the last two Zelda games that we've gotten. Everything that I've seen makes me more excited about it. The previews, it was in the previews, right? Yes, the previews have also um, confirmed that there's going to be what are they called? Um, there's going to be combat zones, like similar to Breath of the Wild, where you go into like an enemy's place and you beat all the enemies, and then the chest lights up at the end. What am I looking for? But it's similar to that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Monster camps, like there's camps of
Yeah.
monsters. You beat all the monsters, and so it's similar to that. Very happy to see that that's included also in the overworld, where you're usually getting a lot of ingredients to make smoothies. Um,
Yeah, which the smoothies,
so
I'm surprised I haven't seen more people draw this comparison online. It's the cooking from Breath of the Wild, but I've seen them compare it to other things from other games, and I'm like, no, this is just you're gonna get stat boosts from it. It's the same thing as cooking in Breath of the Wild, but yeah, I'm excited for that to get in there.
it seems like from the last trailer, any predictions we might have made, we were probably pretty spot on with anything we thought as far as the story goes. I'll kind of digress a little bit. Listeners, there are like IGN, I know like Celtic, tons of people either in UK or America have done the preview, which takes you through the first dungeon. And the story is not surprising. It's pretty much what we had thought, and the demo kind of tells you what goes on through the first dungeon, and you have a pretty good idea of what abilities you're going to have. What I'm trying to say is that I think we have a pretty good idea of what this game is going to be and what Zelda is going to be able to do in this game. But
Yeah, I think they've pretty much
yeah,
let us know exactly what to expect from it. We know the dungeon. We know that it's going to have traditional dungeons now, which is since Breath of the Wild something we have to question. We know basically how combat is going to work. We know basically what your options are for healing and for stuff like that. So yeah, we've got everything we need to know about this game. We're just ready to play it. So we can move on
oh,
to talking. Oh, go ahead.
last little tidbit I'll add is just that the preview has confirmed that this story probably does not take place within any storyline, because within in the beginning we find out that other NPCs don't know Link's character. So,
Don't get me started on the Zelda timeline. Like,
but that's it. That's the last part that I'll say is that
then
it's
I'll just say this real
assumed.
quick. We should think of the Zelda universe more like we look at that Spider-Verse movie, where it's more of a multiverse with canon events, people. Each game decides what its history is as it goes. So stop pretending there's a plan. There's not one.
It is assumed that it does not take place directly after a Zelda game. So timeline, don't ask me, but this is not like uh this is not like it's right after Link's Awakening or something. It's people had thought that this was maybe somehow linked to some other game. It appears that it's not. Uh, but but yeah, lots of returning characters, um, lots of returning NPCs. Let's move on. Yes, you do you want to talk about? Did you see the other short trailer, the one for Mario and Luigi? Did you watch that one?
Yeah. This one's got me really excited. I love this art style. It's really, really cool. I don't know what it is about it. There's like a smoothness to it that has me really excited to play and explore this world.
Have you played Cuphead? Because
No, I haven't.
um, I don't know if if it's on PlayStation Network. You really should one day. Um, uh, it's the art style reminds me of Cuphead so much. Like it looks like hand drawn, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess you could say it that way. It looks like, I don't know, different art styles, but it looks like it could be almost like charcoal or something like that. It's got like just something that's very nice about looking at it. Like it looks like a cartoon, you know, which is a lot of games today look like a cartoon. So it's hard to, express exactly what it is about this art style I like so much. It's just neat. I really like the way Mario and Luigi look. I like the animations. Um, the environments look gorgeous, and even the towns that we got a brief look at, it looks like it's going to be fun to explore them and talk to people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks to me like like an old cartoon art style where everything does look extremely smooth, like the animations, especially like I love the animations of like Mario and Luigi. Was this in, in another game before, like where they come together and they spin around to traverse places? Like it looks like they
Yeah,
become like a UFO.
yeah.
Is that
The
another
the
game?
the little bit of experience I've had with the series, it does that a lot. So you get little brother abilities to do things. I don't know if it's ever been as drastic as transforming into a UFO before. It's usually stuff like getting on one brother getting on the other's shoulders and like doing like a different jump, or it's usually stuff like that, like stretching themselves across things, or I can't really think of all the abilities off the top of my head, but not I don't know if we've had transformations before. That might be new. Again, I don't know the
Yeah,
series as well as I know other series, so um
right. It looks really nice. I bring up Cuphead because Cuphead was inspired by like old cartoons from like the 40s or whatever decade. And that's immediately what I had thought about when I had seen the overworld and just how nice everything looks. Um, so excited to see Mario and Luigi together. I know it's very just a general observation. And 30-second trailer, which I think that might mean that Nintendo might be just slowly, without announcement, releasing more gameplay footage of this game. But we're only about 2 months away. It's November 7th. we're like 2 months exactly from when it releases. So that's my prediction. And yes, the big obvious would be that this trailer came out right after Sony's announcement of Concord, and thank you to like the 2 million people online that pointed that out. Um, you know, like like online when like a joke is made or a meme is made, but like everyone jumps on it that they kill it and it's like not funny after 20 minutes. That's how I felt because um yes, it's Concordia, which is exciting. It's a new setting in Mario, but yes, Concordia does sound like Concord. So anyone online who pointed that out, including me right now, thank you. Thank you to everybody.
And then in other news, we've got former Star Fox analyst thinks there's still hope for the franchise's return, which I saw reported this week. Says, lucky for Star Fox fans, Imamura believes that out of the two, Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of the franchise, has got the strongest feelings for Star Fox rather than F-Zero. He then suggests that because Miyamoto's love for Star Fox series, we'll see another game, film, or some kind of new development with the IP at some point, but I don't know when or what. So obviously it's basically a non-story, but I just like that developers and people important to Nintendo are talking about Star Fox. And I know there's been rumors about Star Fox coming to the Switch too. So I just really hope this is more of a, not so much of a non-story, but more of like a calculated reminder to keep the name out there. Like, hey, let's have someone important mention Star Fox so people, kind of drum up a little bit of interest before we start gearing towards a release.
Yeah, I agree that it's just. I think it's a fun non-story. It's someone asking Imamura questions and him answering. Like for example, like in the same interview, he talks about how he thinks Miyamoto Miyamoto loves Star Fox, but he's just a very busy person with other projects, and like that's a huge understatement, you know. Um, Nintendo is very much focusing on so many projects that make money, and I think we were even talking was last week, like last week about mobile games and like how like Nintendo and like the mobile space isn't really sure what to do, but they're probably overwhelmed with how much money they can make off those games where they feel like they have to do that. But the part that I liked is that they did talk about, what if there was like a Star Fox F-Zero movie at some point? Because Imamura said that he would definitely want to be a part of a Star Fox film if it ever happened. And I just like to think about, like what if Nintendo got into film so much where we got a Nintendo film every year and we got some that had I'm going to say smaller IPs because it's smaller than, Mario, Zelda, which is getting a movie. Like what if we got Nintendo films that could still make lots of money but aren't going to be like the $1 billion Mario film? Because I would love to see a Star Fox film.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they'd need to develop the story, obviously, but every time I start to think about that, I'm like, well, how much story did Mario really have? And they definitely did their part. I mean, I'm double backing on everything I say here. Yes, people criticize the Mario movie for having a generic story, but they at least made a story out of Mario that you watched it and you were like, yeah, that was a movie with A to B to C. And they would have to create that for Star Fox a little more because, the game is really a rail shooter at the core, and there's not a whole lot of story other than like fly from this planet to the end planet and stop Andros. So we'd have to see some things incorporated in, but I think they could definitely incorporate stuff from the other Star Fox games, like Star Fox Assault, where you're more on foot and it's very Star Wars, those missions. So they could do stuff like that. Um, yeah, I think the Star Fox movie definitely has potential.
Right. And yeah, I think the potential is that uh, you know, the last Nintendo film made so much money, and they already had at least one or two more planned out, and it's just whether they would start making films of other IPs. So, if anything, it is just kind of fun to talk about. Uh, I don't know. Make a prediction. Are we going to see a Star Fox or F-Zero game on the next system? What do you think?
I think we will see a Star Fox and an F-Zero game on the next system. I think that they're cycling through their franchises. I don't know why it didn't end up on the Switch to begin with. Probably because of in Star Fox's case, probably because of the Wii U game not doing as well as they wanted it to. For F-Zero, I have no idea. But maybe the focus on Mario Kart 8 being their racing franchise. But I definitely think that it's time to see something different. Maybe they don't lead with Mario Kart 10. And yes, I think they're going to skip 9 and go to 10 because in a lot of the stuff they've been putting out, they include Mario Kart Tour as a mainline game. So, and plus Mario Kart 10 is better for marketing with the X. And yeah, so so anyway, yeah, I think before we see Mario Kart 10, I'll even throw that prediction out. I think before we see Mario Kart 10, we might see an F-Zero game because it's something different. And if they put the F-Zero game out first, they don't have to worry about Mario Kart taking away from F-Zero sales. So I think we'll see that. And I think Star Fox, I mean, it's almost a no-brainer at this point. Like they've given the franchise like 7 years to rest. Uh it's time. And it's a very very talked about franchise in the Nintendo circles of like, when are we going to get this again? So all you have to do, you don't have to overthink it. Don't overthink it. We don't need like VR Star Fox. We just need new levels that have good rail shooting mechanics. That's it. You don't have to overthink everything. And it feels like that's what they wait for sometimes with Star Fox is, oh, this one's going to be completely different. Just give us new levels, different points where your team needs help or different routes that you can go through the levels. It's really really, I don't want to say easy, but it's not as complicated as Nintendo's making it to put out a Star Fox game.
Yeah, I wonder if they would take a different direction. Uh, like if they
I
would
think they've
ever
tried a
just
different
do
direction so many times now that it's time to do the back to the original. It's almost like now it's time for a throwback game because the Wii U game had that weird thing with the controller, and the DS games had all the touchscreen stuff, and Star Fox Assault and Star Fox Adventure were so different. It's like every time now they've done something outside the box instead of just giving us Star Fox 64 but modern.
right. I only see that because of trends lately. Because we have like there was Starfield, there's like No Man's Sky, and like I'm playing this game like called Planet Crafter, and I'm seeing like along with a lot of games going to the sea, a lot of games are going into space or like Mars or like a planet that's supposed to be Mars, but it's not called Mars. I I just wonder if Nintendo would be tempted by recent trends, something that we see a lot in games now. But I agree. I think you're right. The rail shooters beyond Pokemon Snap isn't really something that Nintendo does, and it would be something that's very new at this point. So I agree, and we're already testing F Zero on the current Switch system with a free game. So that usually says that Nintendo is looking at seeing how much interest there is in that IP.
Oh,
So
so another thing I
yeah.
wanted to talk about, I guess this is kind of a rumor, but there was a story where analyst David Gibson expects a September reveal and a March release for Switch 2, which is not, again, this is a week with a lot of repeat stuff and non-stories, but they're worth talking about because this is the first time anyone's thrown out a specific date where they mentioned that they think that the Switch 2 reveal will be between September 18th and 26th. And then this is weird because they say if it doesn't hit that window, it'll be in early October. So I don't know why it would change there. But so we've got that window for the reveal. And then an interesting piece that he points out about why something is coming soon is he says no one seems to have noticed that the Nintendo assembler Houseiden, I guess is the company name, is spending 2 billion yen on production equipment and 1 billion on automation for its major customer Nintendo. And then he goes on to say, I still expect September news and March 2025 release for the device. But this is like basically a new development in the story is they got all this money now for development out there. So something's happening.
They're building uh, a factory in Vietnam.
Okay.
Like I think, well,
Well,
something's
that's
going
that's
on,
part
but
of he has the numbers in here. That's part of it, but it's only it looks like about 25%, maybe less, 20% of the little line graph he has here. Um he has it broken down into new factory in Vietnam, production equipment, automation and rest of business. So production equipment is still a good chunk of this bar.
yeah, I mean it's all valid. I'm not saying that it's not valid. I just it sounds like more of the same of the educated guesses. It could be valid, but it could be just an educated guess as well. It's fun to think about which one it is though.
This is one I'm
Uh,
leaning more towards believing though. I think September um is a good month for them to I'm not saying they're going to unveil everything about the system, but I think this is when they will start talking about the system in some capacity. I don't think they're going to do a code name like they did with Switch because that was kind of a non-starter, but they might reveal the name of the device and say something else, or they might just do like a drop the name and let's say the next system has two screens, which I really hope it does. They drop the name and then like a little logo where like two screens come together or something that gets people talking but isn't really any anything concrete. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that would be cool because I predicted that if it does have a dual screen, that it'll be able to disconnect from itself.
Or
Um,
even if it doesn't have the dual screens though, like for example, like another thing they could do is like just reveal the name of the system and then like a cartoon outline of what the system's going to look like, which we're all expecting it to look exactly like the Switch, but maybe it doesn't.
Right. Two things that I would say that I could update from last week or the last time we talked about this that would make me agree with this would be that one, it looks like Nintendo is not going to reach their goal of hardware sales this year, which might encourage them to to speed things up or have a September window of giving their investors, more of an idea of what's going on. Um, the the other one being that they had a pretty large 40-minute combined partner indie showcase in September in August, clearing up for September to be like what's in there's always something in September and what's it going to be because it kind of feels like we could go into this holiday season with a good idea of what's to come. So,
It's funny
yes.
you mentioned them not hitting their goals because another news story that broke that's similar to this is about how they spent almost $1 billion in research and development last year, which apparently is a record for the company. Um, so I'm not saying all of that is going to the Switch 2, but it shows that they're definitely spending money, and at some point they're going to have to start making that back. So you spent $1 billion this year on researching and developing things. It's time to start releasing things.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy where they are as a company now. Uh, because like we'll even talk about it with the spotlight later, but like you hear in the 90s about these like $1 million market campaigns Nintendo would go on. Nintendo at some point was a company that was like if they lost millions of dollars, they would be in trouble. Like
Yeah.
but but now they can like do $1 billion on research and it's like it's probably a good investment, you know. It's probably something that they're going to, you know, make money on in the future when they're releasing new hardware.
And it's probably also worth mentioning, since we're on the subject of Switch 2, that more in the tradition of non-stories this week, Nate the Hate says that the Switch 2 will be reverse compatible, which is like, okay, how many more people are going to come out with this rumor? Like, do we just re-release this rumor every 2 or 3 weeks? Oh, okay. 50 people have now said it's going to be reverse compatible. We'll see when it happens. At this point, it would be hilarious if it wasn't.
Or if it was like extremely reverse compatible. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
It plays
we're
Game Boy
talking
Advance
3DS,
games. It's got a slot
DS,
for every type of
GBA.
cartridge.
It just looks like like a USB hub,
Yeah.
like you just got slots. All like you're trying to put DS and the 3DS slots not working. Um, that's that's an option.
All right, it's time for
Let's
Wave Race.
talk about Wave Race.
Bam, 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 ba-dam. So, Wave Race came out September of 1996 in Japan and November of 1996 in North America. It was one of the launch titles for the Nintendo 64, which was one of the launch titles I picked up for the Nintendo 64. It was one of two games I had basically in that beginning. I had this and I had Mario 64, like most people. Um, Shadows of the Empire, I know, came out like a month later, which I don't think I ever owned. I think I just rented it a lot. What else was in the beginning? What were Nintendo 64 launch titles? Pilot
Uh,
Wings. Pilot Wings was in there.
Power Wings. There's Cruisin'. Right.
Yeah, that was in the
It's
beginning.
Cruising. You say
Turok
there's
Dinosaur
a
Hunter.
hockey game
But I
that
think
was a launch title, I think.
yeah, okay, I
Um,
just confirmed it here. So the only day one available games, there were only two that were available the first day, and then stuff started trickling out the next week, was Mario 64 and Pilot Wings were the only two available
that's
day one. and then all of these launch title games we just mentioned came out within the first month.
So the order, so those are day one, and then Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and then Wave Race the day, like basically like the within 2 days. Wayne Gretzky 3D Hockey, Killer Instinct Gold, Cruis'n USA, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, and that was it.
And
That was
Shadows
it
of
for
the
that
Empire
was
was supposed to be a day one. It got delayed. I don't remember where I read that, but that's a fact that's always stuck with me.
that came out the exact same day in North America as Cruis'n USA, and like like just thinking of yeah, it's 8 titles. That's it. Like you have
Well, when your system
N64.
has less than 300 games at the end of it, that's probably about the pace they were keeping. And I kind of miss that. I kind of miss when literally there was only really one game a month worth talking about, and you could kind of just absorb everything. Back in the day when you could have a video game magazine where in 20 something pages they could talk about everything video game news that month. But I digress. Wave Race. I was super into this game in 1996. I beat the heck out of this game. I beat it on hard mode. I unlocked Twilight City. I beat it on expert mode to unlock Glacier Coast. I unlocked the backwards courses by getting that gold trophy on expert. I unlocked the dolphin, which I don't even remember how to do anymore, but I know it's something in the like stunt mode, I think, and it was in Nintendo Power that told me how to do it. But today, I don't think I would have put that kind of time into a game like this. So it was interesting going back and seeing like how much you played a game back then just because it was one of the only things available.
Right. Right. I feel the same way. Uh, I think this was a game I played later on. I didn't have N64 when it first came out. Um, so I would say it's the best looking from this early era of N64. Uh, I'm assuming it looks better than Super Mario 64 to me. The lighting, depending on the time of day, is awesome. The water and the water physics of it looks great. Um, and I thought the music was forgettable, but it doesn't matter when I think about this game. It would only
So
matter in a hypothetical.
I don't disagree about it being forgettable. However, when I did fire it up to play for this week, I was amazed because it's done by the same people who made the music for Mario 64. And I was amazed at how much it felt like the Mario 64 music. Some of it felt like I was listening to like rejected tracks. Like it sounded like it could have been in Mario 64. There's like it's using the same synthesizers, the same sound catalog, and it just sounds it's nice to hear new Mario 64 music, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. Only in a hypothetical would I say that it matters, because in the hypothetical, maybe it has a better soundtrack. Besides that, if you were to ask me about it, I would say I don't know. I can't even really remember what the music sounds like. But yeah, I had a great time returning to this game. Uh, did you ever play the sequel, Blue Storm?
No, I had completely lost interest by the time we were on to GameCube. But my first GameCube game was Smash Melee, and I don't think I ever went back to the. I think I was over racing games in general by then. I had this weird thing that I talked to Sean about once, where like I was at a certain age super into racing games, and I feel like for some reason, around the time I got my actual driver's license and could drive a real car, I sort of like lost interest in racing games. And it's not like I do street racing or anything in real life, so I don't know why that is. It's just like around the age of 16, 17, I just started to lose interest unless they had a gimmick like Mario Kart or something. Just something that was a straight up come in first place and get the best time kind of racing game. Lost interest completely by that age.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of card games, like a huge fan of card games. Uh, but I lose interest in racing games usually because the sense of reward's not always there for me. Like if it's a racing game where it's just like here's a car, or like here's 100 cars, um, then I might lose motivation to where the car games I play now are games where like you have one car and you have to work on that car and you have to make the car better. That is where my interest usually goes. Like the
I
the
like that they
mechanical side of
tried.
things.
I like that they tried to introduce another aspect into this game with the stunt mode. And we talked about this also with Excite Bike 64. So it's interesting that two games have kind of done this where it's interesting that it's in there. I remember playing it a lot. And I think that's how you unlock the dolphin, was doing something in that stunt mode. But I like that it kind of has, in a pre-Tony Hawk's Pro Skater world, it kind of controls like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater in how you do the stunts. It was just very straight up, like you would do like up down to do a handstand. You would rotate the control stick to change how you were riding on the jet ski, and yeah, you could do a barrel roll. um and I appreciate that they put that in there. It definitely at the time gave us a little something extra to do in this game, and I think it holds up more than some games that are completely focused on the stunt mode from the same era. Like I've said a bunch of times, I think 1080 snowboarding is very hard to go back to in a post Tony Hawk's Pro Skater world. It's so hard to pull off tricks in that game. So yeah, they got that right.
Right. And I was trying to think about where's there any other water sport games, water racing games that I had played and I thought of none. Because this is definitely a period of time where extreme sports are becoming way more popular, and I love how like every company, PlayStation, Nintendo, is trying to find like its own niche. Like I think even like Electronic Arts like did like a wave racing, wave boarding, some kind of game like that in the 90s. Uh,
There was a
of
wave
course,
race
it was
on
much
Game Boy too, which I'm surprised isn't on the service.
right, right, and like I guess it took off more with snowboarding. SSX, 1080, Snowboard Kids, whatever
Yep.
else, Final Fantasy. You said. um, are there any other? I don't know. Have you played any other water sport games?
Not that I can think of, no. I mean, obviously there's like water sections of other racing games, but specifically, no. I mean, Diddy Kong Racing is as close as I can think of, and when it has like the hovercraft levels, but that's a third of the game or less.
And is it commonly known that this game was originally boats, but they changed it to not match F-Zero as much?
I don't know. I found that out this week as well when I looked into the game, but like it wasn't. I don't know if I had heard that before, so I don't know how many people know that. It's definitely an interesting what if scenario. I don't know if the boats would have worked as much with the gameplay style they went with though, because it seemed like they had heavy emphasis on the fact that the waves in the titular wave race kind of really toss you around and determine, how you're gonna place at the end of the day. You can get knocked right off your jet ski if you hit a wave wrong. So I don't know how that would have worked with a boat, like if they would have still rocked the boats with as many waves.
Did this game make you want to have a jet ski as a kid? And
No.
would you still ride a jet ski today?
I've never had a desire to ride a jet ski, actually, and I've grown up where I grew up had plenty of places to go jet skiing. There were plenty of lakes, big lakes in my area where people would, and I just never had the interest.
I never have, and this is this is most likely where the interest took place.
Okay.
It still looks like a blast. Like it looks like something it would be hard to to not have fun on a jet ski, but but now it's more like would my insurance blah 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 like things like that I would fall off
Do, do you think
my
games like
problem.
this suffer from having generic characters? Because that was my biggest takeaway from playing this week, is remembering a time where it really was a holdover from arcades falling out of fashion, is these generic characters you would get in these games like this and Excite Bike and stuff that flies in the arcade that I don't think really works on a home game. Do you think it hurts it?
Of course, of course. I mean, ask yourself this: if they were to re-release Wave Race, well, I mean, this is a rhetorical. They would not use generic characters again if they were to make a different Wave Race game,
Well,
right?
I mean, yeah, because compare it to the other racing Nintendo franchise we've talked about a lot this episode, F-Zero. You've got Captain Falcon as like a very prominent character there, but you've also got, like, I remember even in the Super Nintendo uh, F-Zero, you had that like evil scientist guy who drove the yellow car, and the guy who drove the green car was like an alien. Like I don't even know their names, but they're just like distinct, like they've got a look and a feel to them.
Right. I think for games like this, you have to use characters that are that either people know or are not generic, or or um, you have a create a player function in there. Because yes, if you can make your own player and then you see your own player riding around and you see your own created player on the podium at the end, then that's much better.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they wouldn't. But if they were to ever make this game again, no, they would not use just generic people. So is it would I go as far as to say is it a mistake? I don't know, but it's not something that helps. And my biggest criticism of this game would just be lack of lack of content, which is understandable, completely understandable. But
Yeah, they had
you
just
know,
crossed that barrier into what it's almost like, and I'm not the first one to say this, but it's like that 64 PlayStation generation. It's almost like a complete start over for video games. It's a new begin.
yes, yeah,
So
yes, we're moving into
so it makes sense that it's a very bare bones game, like you just said, because like they were probably just thrilled that it worked. They were like, "All right, this is a 3D environment. We got 3D character models." Which, by the way, Mario Kart didn't even have 3D character models when that eventually came out on Nintendo 64. So, yeah, they had 3D character models. They had, the jet skis look great. Like the people don't, but the actual jet skis themselves, and for Nintendo 64, the water looks good. There's great fog effects in one of the levels. which I mean, now that I say it out loud, Nintendo 64 didn't have any problem creating fog, but still, you know what I'm saying? Like the game looks good for what it is, especially at that
Yeah.
stage of the video game industry.
Yes, yes, it looks great. It looks great. Any criticisms of this game is something where I would say I understand because it's 1996 and they did, in my opinion, so much more than what I would have expected at the time. If you were to go back and play it, which we did this week, you'd probably say that, oh, there's like four different races that you can play on. So it does feel like it lacks content today. If you view it from the right lens, I think you're going to enjoy this game, and I certainly enjoyed going back to it this week.
And I think that as well,
Yeah.
the there only being those many courses is another thing that's a holdover from arcades. Because if you look at the other game we mentioned coming out around the same time, Cruisin' USA was also very much just an arcade game that they were able to finally put on a home console and not make as many sacrifices. So yeah, I think it was just accepted back then.
Did you ever play Beetle Adventure Racing?
No, I own it in my in my I have a shelf over here where I was trying to collect every single Nintendo 64 game and I got pretty far. So it is a Nintendo 64 game that I own. But I haven't yet played it. I do understand it's got like a cult following and I hope that they can bring it to the service someday, even though there's probably a lot of crazy licensing involved.
Because I was going through our list, and we certainly lack racing games. And I was trying to think about it last night of what racing games are on N64 that I forgot about. And apparently, Beetle Adventure Racing has a huge following online. And I'm like,
Yes.
why? I'm
I
like,
don't know
why?
either because I haven't played it, but I know the same thing. Yeah.
Apparently, it's just like it's the world design. I mean, it looks pretty good. I mean, it does look pretty good. So maybe it plays well, but I'm like, Beatles, really? But okay. Anyways,
They had a moment in
I
the late 90s. Volkswagen was killing it.
yes, yes, certainly. I mean, my mom had a Beetle. They were super
Pikachu had
expensive
a
to
Beetle.
maintain. Right, right, exactly, exactly. So that's about it for me. I mean, where do you rank this game? Um, who would you recommend this game to?
So out of the 87 games we've done so far, I rank this pretty much smack dab in the middle at 43. So right below Pokemon Snap, which is another Nintendo 64 game, but I think I would rather throw on Pokemon Snap than throw on this. In fact, I know I would. There's a lot more to do in that game. And it ranks right above the game we talked about last week, which was the first Double Dragon on NES. So it's pretty much exactly in the middle of my list right now.
And who would you recommend this game to?
Oh, sorry. So I would
Okay.
recommend this game to anyone who likes realistic racing games, if that makes sense. Like if you're somebody who's not into the Mario Karts, if you're somebody who doesn't like F-Zero weird sci-fi fantasy, if you're somebody who likes Excite Bike or Cruisin' USA or San Francisco Rush, that was another genre at the time. Um, what's the modern one? Gran Turismo. If you like those type of realistic racing games, and you can appreciate a game for the time period it was released, because obviously, if you're just playing Gran Turismo for the amazing visuals, you're not going to get that here. But if you can appreciate a game that came out in 1996 for what it is, and you like straightforward racing games, this is definitely a good option for you.
And last one before I take over. I believe this is the only other racing game we've done besides Excite Bike. We did the 3 Excite Bike games. Does it rank higher than Excite Bike for you?
Yes, I had Excite Bike
Yes.
and I had Excite Bike Versus and NES Excite Bike at 68 and 69. So lower than the 43 that this ranked as. And I'm trying to find where I ranked Excite Bike 64. Right here, 54. So I like that one a little more, but not as much as this game, which is true. I'm not really big on Excite Bike. I definitely like Wave Race more, so that checks out.
I'm just surprised we've only done, like, this is the second time we've done a racing game.
We did F-Zero X.
Oh,
I don't know. Maybe you weren't on that episode. I can't remember. But
I can't remember either. I was trying to go through and think.
oh no, it's in your ranking. I'm looking right now. So yeah, but that's it. That's just the 3. It's Excite Bike, F-Zero, and this. And honestly, we should have that when we did F-Zero X, we should have just done the other F-Zero games. So we've got 2 more of those to knock off at some point.
Right, that might have been a while ago. Right, so I had F-Zero X at 21, which makes sense. And then I put Excite Bike at no, not Excite Bike. I'm reading off the page. I put Wave Race at 32. So that's below Metroid 2, definitely. I put it above Punch Out, Harvest Moon 64, Double Dragon. Yeah, I mean, 32 for me. I think this is like really really high up, given what the genre of this game is. I mean, I'm looking at my list. Like my top 40 is pretty solid. Like I think my top 40, maybe more than that, are games that I would happily return to. So,
Yeah, there's some
um,
hard decisions left in the pack there. Like there's like we still haven't done let me take a look. There's a lot of key games that we haven't pulled before I hit the randomizer. We haven't done a Mario Kart yet. We haven't done let's see. There's still Metroid games and still Zelda games in the list. There's still there's some Donkey Kong games left in there. Earthbound's a big one. So there's going to be some hard stuff to rank and squeeze into the top. And then, of course, there's some garbage left in there too.
right, and N64, there's only so many games that we'll be able to go through. I mean, we'll have like a 007 week. We'll have a GoldenEye. Excuse me. We'll have a Perfect Dark week. So yeah, maybe one of these games will come up this week.
Let's find out.
Let's
Spin
find
that
out.
randomizer. Okay, so we can do some more doubling up because speak of the devil, we brought it up a few times this episode. We are going to be talking about Pilot Wings next week. So we can do both Pilot Wings games that are on here, Pilot Wings 64 and the Super Nintendo one. And I can finally talk about how weird it is that they completely changed the overall vibes of the franchise for that Nintendo 64 version. What do you
Okay.
have any history with Pilot Wings?
I don't remember.
All right.
I've definitely played N64 version. I definitely
It's a
didn't
big
have
one for
it.
me. In our first episode, when Sean and I talked about Nintendo therapy games, that's one that I mentioned. Pilot Wings is definitely the Super Nintendo one, is one that I often go back to as like I just want to throw on something to relax and unwind. And yeah, Pilot Wings is a forever game for me. The Nintendo 64 one, I'll talk more about next week. What were you going to say? Sorry.
The N64 one is the one I remember playing most.
Okay.
I don't think I owned it, but yeah, yeah. Okay, well, that's for next week then. Sounds good.
Alrighty, so as always, keep in mind we're Nintendo fans, not Nintendo experts. So if you got anything you want to let us know, let us know. We got email, nintendotherapypod@gmail.com. We're on X, we're on Instagram, we're on all sorts of things. Reddit, so threads, we're in there too. So, get a hold of us if you wanna. And we'll be back next week. We might have a guest. Reply pending, but we've got some people in the pipeline eventually. So look forward to that, and let's talk some Pilot Wings next week.